All right, today we're jumping into something, well, something pretty radical. It's a theory about charity that's going to make you question everything you thought you knew about helping people. And it all starts with this one single, really provocative question. Seriously, what if our best intentions, the things we do to help, are actually making the world's problems worse? It's a tough pill to swallow, but stick with me, because where this goes is fascinating. So to back this up, the source material points to this just wild statistic. Think about it. Since World War II, the global population has, doubled? Okay. But in that same time, the number of people who are seriously ill or disabled has gone up by 10 times or more. How is that even possible? Right. So that's the big paradox here. We've got more aid, more hospitals, more volunteers, more medical miracles than at any point in history. We're throwing everything we have at these problems, and yet these seem to be getting worse faster. It just doesn't add up. So the big question is, why? Well, the philosophy we're looking at today says this isn't a coincidence. Not at all. In fact, it argues it's a direct result of how we're trying to help. The idea is that our whole approach is broken, and it's actually feeding the very problem we want to solve. So let's break that down. How exactly is our help failing? The argument really goes after the core beliefs we have about charity. Okay, so the theory splits help into two totally different categories. On one side, you have what most of us do, which it calls volunteerism. And look, it says this is basically just a temporary patch-up job. You're treating the symptom right, slapping a Band-Aid on a problem. But then there's something it calls true welfare, and that's completely different. It's about getting to the root cause so the problem doesn't even have a chance to start. And right there, that's what this philosophy calls our biggest mistake. We see someone who's hurt, and our entire focus becomes stop the bleeding. We're not asking the crucial question, why did they get hurt in the first place? What was the chain of events that led to this moment? We're only focused on the end result. Okay, this is where things get really, really interesting, because the next part of this theory completely flips our understanding of what pain and suffering are even for. It's not just a physical thing, it's a lesson. So the idea is that each of us is on a personal path called the course. And along this path, life tries to teach us certain critical lessons. It starts with little hints, but if you keep ignoring them, if you just don't get the message, eventually that lesson shows up in a big, painful way. Suffering, in this view, is the final exam you can't ignore. And check this out. It even lays out the warning signs. First, maybe you just hear about a problem. Then, you actually meet someone going through it. The next thing you know, you feel this pull to go volunteer and help them. Well, according to this theory, that moment you decide to volunteer is a huge red flag. It means you're at the final stage of your own lesson. And if you don't learn it from watching them, guess what? The problem might just become yours. Yeah, and this next quote is probably the most challenging part of this whole idea. It's pretty blunt. It basically says that a personal tragedy isn't just bad luck. It's a direct signal from the world that you've done something wrong, and your job is to figure out what that was. It puts all the responsibility right back on the individual to understand their mistake. So if you reframe pain like that, as a lesson, it completely flips the script on who's helping who. The whole dynamic we're used to gets turned on its head. Think about it. In this view, when you volunteer, you're not the hero showing up to save the day. You're actually the student. You've been drawn to that specific person, that specific problem, because you need to learn the lesson they've already been through. You're there for, as the source calls it, on-site training. And what about the person who's suffering? Well, once they figure out their lesson, once they graduate from their course, they get a new job, a new purpose. Their duty is now to become a teacher. They have to stop blaming everyone else, figure out their own mistake, accept it, and then teach that lesson to anyone who comes to visit. It's how they prevent others from falling into the same trap. So you see the flip? The volunteer walks in thinking they're going to give some aid, maybe some money or food. But what they walk away with is a lesson, a piece of wisdom that could literally save them from going through that same horrible experience. The helper becomes the one who was truly helped. Okay, so if the normal way of volunteering is flawed, what's the alternative? What should we be doing instead? This is where the idea of true welfare comes in. And true welfare isn't about giving out things, not food, not money, not resources. It's about giving out wisdom. The whole point isn't to manage the symptoms of suffering, but to get rid of the cause by making sure everyone understands the lessons. And here's how that system would work. It's pretty proactive. You'd have researchers, doctors and thinkers, whose whole job is to study these tragedies and figure out the lesson behind them. Then you'd have educators take that wisdom and teach it to everyone, so people can learn to avoid the mistakes that lead to pain in the first place. It's like an educational vaccine against tragedy. That's what's meant by work that is widely beneficial to people. And the ultimate goal here, it's a big one. It's to get that number, the number of new people falling into hardship, down to 0. To stop this whole cycle of suffering. The dream is a society where we're wise enough to learn the lessons without needing the pain to teach us. Which brings us back to where we started. It's a huge shift in perspective, isn't it? It challenges us to see suffering not just as a random problem we need to fix, but as a message, a very important one. And so, the final question this leaves us with is, if suffering is trying to tell us something, are we actually listening?